Multimodality made easy. Multimodality. Well, I need to preface this by saying that there are very numerous approaches to multimodality, and the one that I will take my lead from is the one, the version that was basically developed by Günter Kress. Günter Kress in association with a number of other people, but certainly Günter Kress has been instrumental in shaping my views of multimodality. And in order to understand what it is about, we need to start from the negative of it, the negation of it. And the negation, the point of departure, like the answer to the question, why do we need multimodality, is a tradition that has basically dominated the 20th century, of thinking about meaning as basically lodged in language, and not just in the formal properties of language, but in the abstract properties of language. Grammar was never concrete, it was an abstract thing. It was the way in which language structurally organized meaning, right? A very long tradition of that, a tradition we call modern linguistics. Now, of course, there was no awareness that language wasn't the only source of meaning, but all the rest was relegated, so to speak, to another thing which was called semiotics. And semiotics was the study of meaning, of what they call signs, i.e. non-verbal, non-linguistic items that produced meaning. Now, multimodality is essentially the view, the insight that meaning resides in both, right? And that even when we use language, we use it concretely. And we never only use the sort of linguistic structures of language in order to make meaning. We use facial expressions, we use intonation, we use particular grammatical structures, all right, that create particular types of meaning effects. For instance, we will repeat things because repetition, i.e. doing the same grammatical thing identically twice or even more. Repetition is an important sort of meaning making. And so it has an immense meaning effect. When you repeat things, it means that they're important, right? It's usually called emphasis. So we repeat identical things, and so we are supposed to repeat identical meanings, but they're not identical, all right, because they have been repeated. And so that's a central insight, or at least number one, as a central insight. Whenever we use language, we use it concretely, right? And we need vastly more than the abstract structures of language in order to produce meaning. So whenever we use language, we communicate, we perform a range of actions. Okay, now here comes multimodality. Essentially what Günter said was, well, whenever we make meaning, we do it by using a variety of modalities, like the verbal and the non-verbal, all right? The acoustic and the visual. And for instance, when we have a conversation, we are also a visual entity for the interlocutor, who can basically see us and read, if you wish, in almost literal sense, read from our behavior a lot of what it is that we try to communicate. Okay, for instance, when we smile, or when we don't smile, when we look very serious, when we look worried, when we look nervous or agitated, and so on and so on, those are meaning clues, right? So the idea of modality is essential here. It means, that in the world of meaning making, right? In the world of meaning making, we got all kinds of instruments, modalities that are of a different nature. Okay. They do different things, they enable different things, and this enabling function was called by Günther affordances. So each of the modalities that we use has different affordances. The visual has different affordances than the verbal, in the sense that we are able to do different things, form different aspects of meaning by means of the visual stuff we produce than by means of the verbal stuff we produce. Okay, now if you don't believe me, just for half a minute, switch off the sound function of this video, all right? Now you will see my face, you will see my hands, you will see the upper part of the body, all right? So it's not as if I'm absent as a communicator, but you will have an acute sense that you're missing out on something, right? On the verbal. Now, do the opposite. Switch off the visual channel and just listen to me, all right? And again, you will have meaning, you know, there will be meaning conveyed for you, all right? It's not as if you don't have everything, but again, you will be missing out on a number of important clues that I provide non-verbally by means of the visuality of my act of communication. So essentially, when we think about multimodality, and here's me talking now, right? Multimodality strongly focuses our attention on the actual shape of what we call communication. Communication has a shape and it needs a shape. And in that shape, everything counts. And every dimension of shape has been socially constructed, right? In traditions of usage, right? Has been socially constructed so as to convey very, very clear meanings. These meanings are so self-evident in a number of instances that, of course, we no longer stop to think about how they actually work. But let me give you a very simple example. Here's a book. Here's a book. Now, usually a book we think of as a text, meaning, again, an abstract range network of meanings, all right? A message that is written up in words. Okay, fine. Definitely it is. But a book, of course, needs an illustration in order to be attractive. This is already one modality. But it becomes more interesting when we just simply open the book. All right. So we open a book and we see a page layout. Now, in this page layout, you see a couple of weird things like here. There's a hard hard line break and a blank space. All right. Now we recognize that as a unit, a paragraph. All right. And the existence of the paragraph, of course, is important in the sense that we socially, socioculturally, have acquired a way of understanding the paragraph as a unit of meaning, of narrative, of an argument. Okay, here we see something else, right? We see a blank line, we see a different font, and then again we see paragraphs. Now this we know how to recognize as a section. And again a section, we know what a section is, all right? A section again is a unit within a larger narrative or argument, or it is a way of chopping up a big text into identifiable segments, right? Now we do this graphically, right? In other words, we do this by means of shape, right? Which is why it looks like this. Now imagine that we would not use these, like, visual conventions, and that this book would just be flat, uniform, text from here to here, all the way through. It would be very hard, not just to read, but to understand as well. Okay? So here is what these particular modalities, visual, very concrete, visual modalities have in the way of affordances. They enable us to, when we start reading this, to organize in our heads, organize meaning on the basis of the visual clues that are contained in a very simple way, in a very mundane way, in the layout of a book, of a text, right? And now here, the layout is all about words. We don't see any illustrations, all right? So this book, again, uses a particular set of resources with their affordances, and they're very different from a book, for instance, this one, that would focus very, very strongly on photographs, all right? Here, all right, the visuality and the visual organization and the visual nature of the resources, of course, does different things from the words we've seen organized in chapters, paragraphs, and sections in our first example. Right here, there's hardly any text. We just get visual illustrations, materials. We get photographs, and photographs have very, very different affordances than, texts that are printed on a page, or words that are spoken, live in an interaction, in a conversation. So just to sum up, multimodality is about the way in which, whenever we make meaning, we use very, very different modalities, the ones we have access to or are available, all right? And we use everything there is to be used in the construction of meaning. Not that everything there is to be used are the resources, but more specifically, the socially defined and the socially invested affordances they have. And it is the play, so to speak, of interaction of different affordances lodged in different modalities that is at the heart of meaning making. And meaning making, according to people such as Gunter Kress, is by its very nature multimodal. If you don't believe me, again, think away or remove some of the modalities that I used in this video, like close the acoustic channel or the visual channel, and see what is left. See what is left in the way of meaning. You'll quickly understand how important multimodality is in almost every moment of meaning making.